So, Chris Pramas,
Hello.
we decided to have a little surprise live for folks. Yeah, exactly. And we set this up, and like all good tech things, at least that I have my hand in, it summarily blew up. But so if you're hearing this or seeing this, let us know. Give us the old hi, how you doing? And without further ado, I'm going to show you the man behind the Modesty Shield. Chris, give me some talking first, real quick.
Well, here I am at Gen Con, surrounded by nerds, putting money in the street.
Right. Thank you, nerds.
Yeah. Most of it.
Yeah, for some reason your voice is real quiet for me.
Well, I'll try to protect it.
Alrighty. All right, so Chris, today we are going to talk about Sentinels of Earth-Prime. Turn up some of that volume for you, and we're gonna, what we're gonna do? We're gonna turn down this music. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why suddenly, as soon as we decided to start, your microphone went quiet.
I left to my own devices, my volume does tend to drop, so I just need to try to unsee it.
Try to just sort of give it a little bit more heart and soul. It really sounds like you are kind of far away. But without further ado, let me do this.
As a pirate lord, I am often far out at sea.
That's right. That is true. Folks, let me know how it sounds. We've got people joining us from the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Twitches.
Hey, friends.
So, Gen Con 2022, pretty good show.
Yeah, it's been great, actually. Last year we were here half the size. And, on the upside, it was easier to walk through the aisles. But now this is basically at 2019 levels. But everyone has to be masked and vaxxed. So it's been enough.
Yeah, I haven't heard. Oh, whoa, that's loud. I haven't heard anybody talking about like getting COVID or anything, or I mean, like, has been a lot. Yeah, that's great. Fingers crossed. Exactly. All right. Well, so Chris, I'm gonna shut up and let you start to talk about Sentinels of Earth-Prime, and let's say I'm somebody who's never heard of it. I don't even know what's going on. Maybe I'm a fan of Mutants Masterminds, but I've never seen this. Let's go from there.
All right, sounds good. So, Sentinels of Earth-Prime is a cooperative card game. It lets you have super heroic action around the table. There are 10 heroes who come in the box, and they represent the Freedom League from our Mutants and Masterminds role-playing game. And each person picks a character to play, one of the 10. So I don't know if you can see the cards, but in front of me, I've got Lady Liberty, the Raven, and Captain Thunder. And each one of these has a bespoke deck that represents their various powers and abilities. So the Raven is like a gadgeteer adventurer, so she's got a gadget belt and lots of cards that represent that sort of stuff. So everyone picks a hero, and then you're fighting together against a villain. Here we have the Gru Metamind. The Gru are a telepathic collective from deep space, and they have come to Earth on more than one occasion. So the game comes with 4 villains. Metamind is one of them, and also 4 environments. So you see here, this is Freedom City. Freedom City is one of the classic locations of our Mutants and Masterminds role-playing game. So basically, every time you're going to play the game, you have a team of heroes, you have a villain, and you have a location. So this environment deck, there's 4 of these. Freedom City has been the home of many, many Mutants and Masterminds campaigns, but there's 3 other decks that include the Terminus, which is where Omega lives, and then Tartarus, which you may recognize from Greek mythology, and that's because one of the heroes of the Freedom League is Daedalus from the myths, and he is a tech innovator in an armored suit in the modern day, and Hades is his endless nemesis. Um, and so one of the environment decks is Tartarus, where you're essentially going into hell to to have a fight. Um, so, start of the game, a villain has some setup instructions that tells you the state of the villain at the start of the game. And so, in the case of the Metamind, the important part is that he starts with 1 Gru in play. Gru is one of his minions. Um, and then it notes that he takes -1 to melee damage. So we got this little token here. So we put the token on him to remind us that he takes less melee damage. So, in the decks, the hero decks, there are several different kinds of cards. These are some cards from the Raven. This one is called The Raven Descends, and this is what's called a one-shot. So what that means is you play this card, it does something, and then it goes into your discard pile. Then you have an ongoing card. This is Into the Shadows. And ongoing cards, as you might guess, they stay in play. They might be destroyed by other effects and things, but they're going to stick around. Um, and then there's the specialized equipment cards. These are also ongoing in that they will stay in play, but it requires specific card effects to get rid of equipment. So here she's got some flashbang grenades. So basically, as the game goes on, you're going to be playing one-shots, putting ongoing cards into play, and everyone's trying to beat up on the villain. The metamind here, all the villains have 2 sides to their cards. So this is the starting one, which represents the Gru spaceship. Once you reduce the health of the Gru down to 0, it then flips, and you have a battle in the psychic plane. And then there's different rules that apply, and you have to drop all the hit points down to 0, and at that point, you have defeated the villain, and the game ends. The game also ends if all the heroes die. So, one fun thing about the game, so this is a hero card. This is Lady Liberty. So this red number up here is her hit points. If she drops to 0, she is knocked out. If you flip the card over, and there's some art of her looking sad because she's been defeated. But there's also a power that you can do still, which represents the heroes still struggling to help their friends. So when it gets to be your turn, you actually have something to do. It's limited, but you're not just sitting out while everyone else enjoys the game. So that's a nice part of it. Okay, so if all this sounds familiar to you, if you're thinking, gosh, this sounds like Sentinels of the Multiverse, that's because it's the same game. This was a joint project between Greater Than Games and Green Ronin. And the idea was to take their rules from Sentinels of the Multiverse and combine it with the setting of our Mutants and Masterminds role-playing game. So it's all new characters. If you have existing Sentinels cards, you can mix and match it all. So you can do crossover events where heroes come from Earth-Prime into the multiverse, or vice versa, or multiverse people can fight Earth-Prime villains. It's all works hand in glove. And all of our decks were designed by Christopher Bedell, the designer of Sentinels of the Multiverse. So, he's designed basically all the cards for Sentinels. So everything works together smoothly. So It's a standalone game if you've never played Multiverse, but if you have played Multiverse, it just adds more options to your collection. All right. So should I run through a turn?
Yeah. Let's. What is the anatomy of a turn?
All right. So it's broken up into 3 sections. The villain goes first, then the players go, and then the environment goes.
Okay.
And at each one of those phases or sections, there's a start of the turn phase and an end of the turn phase. Now, in a lot of games that have such a thing, those are just sort of cleanup phases, but it's different because a lot of the various abilities and powers and things are triggered. It'll say, at the start of the turn, do this. At the end of the turn, do that. And so that's why they're marked out specifically, because it is a point in time during the turn. So what happens is you start with the villain. The bad guy gets to go first. And so nobody plays the villain. It's essentially like an AI, very simple. So you start by pulling a card and playing it. So you just flip over the top card of the deck. So here we have Gru Brute. And so he joins his buddy, who is already in play. Um, so then it moves to the end of the turn. And this is where the combat and things happen.
Okay.
So each of these Gru Brutes, at the end of the villain turn, they can deal 2 hero targets with the highest hit points, 2 melee damage each. So that means you would look at these and see who has the most health. And the top health, they're going to get damaged by these brutes. So there's 2 of them, which means they get to do that twice. And then the villain's turn is over. So then you go clockwise, and the heroes start to go. So actually, like if you know the characters, seating arrangement can be important.
Okay.
Because it's sometimes better for the person who's got buffs and things like that to go first, so they can buff other characters and then they get better. So on their turns, they,
Gotcha.
more stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. How does what is the min number of players and max?
You can play with 2.
Good. Okay, good.
Yeah, up to I want to say 6.
Up to how many?
6, I think, 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Okay, gotcha.
So obviously, it's a longer game the more players you have, but it does scale. So a lot of the villain abilities, they've got a little icon that has an H on it, and it'll say like this affects like H or H-1 or H+2, and H is simply the number of players.
Gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah. So the Gru mothership here, blah blah blah. So at the end of the villain turn, reveal the top. Oh, I forgot to do this. Haha, lol.
We're learning.
Yeah, we're learning. So, Metamind has a power. At the end of the villain turn, reveal the top H-1 cards of the villain deck. So, if we had 3 players, that would be reveal 2 cards. So basically, the villains get to do more the more players that there are, and so that helps scale everything. There's also the option to play an advanced game, and that gives the villains even more powers. So if you're like, that's not challenging enough, you can be like, let's use the advanced rules.
Nice. All right, that's awesome.
Yeah. So when you get to a hero turn, everyone's got a hand of 4 cards, and it's they get start of the turn phase, and then they play a card out of their hands, and so it could be any of the various types, and then they get to use a power. So every hero card starts with 1 power down the bottom. This is like the base thing that they can do.
Gotcha.
So at the start of the game, this is what you'll be using. But a lot of those ongoing cards and sometimes equipment, they can give you additional powers to draw from. So you play a card, then you use a power. You can only use 1 power. So if you've got this and 2 other ones ongoing, you have to pick which one you want to use.
Gotcha.
So you just follow the rules, do what the card says.
Right. What are the villain powers?
It varies depending on the villain.
Right.
So they can do all sorts of stuff. Sometimes it's like, oh, destroy, H-1 equipment cards,
I see.
or what have you. A lot of it is straight damage. There are different types of damage. There's like fire damage, melee damage, radiant damage, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so normally that doesn't matter, but some characters, are immune to certain types of damage, or it's reduced. So it's like, oh, if you hit me with fire damage, I only take, -2.
Right. Well, here's a question for you. How familiar does a new player have to be with all of the heroes? Like,
Well, conceptually, not at all. I mean,
great. Yeah.
there is the rule book. We've got little bios of the heroes and the villains,
Nice.
so you can learn about them. Um, you will learn the deck as you play, and a lot of the decks have unique mechanics in them. So the Raven, she has these cards. They have a type like ongoing one shot or whatever, but some of them are what are called tactics cards, and a lot of the action of her deck is using and manipulating tactics cards.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you can only have one of those in play at a time. So basically, she's been doing one tactic. If you put a new card into play, then that one's destroyed, and now she's using a different.
Interesting. That's fun.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So on a turn, yeah, I've gone through the hero turn. After the power, you draw a card, and then turn ends, and then it goes to the environment phase. The environment deck works like a villain deck in that you're just going to flip over the top card. And so the environment deck basically like creates new challenges for everybody. So sometimes the environment deck messes with the heroes, but also the villain. There are sometimes creatures that can come out of here, like, oh no, it's a dinosaur, and you have to decide as a hero, where do you want to place your damage? Is it better to get rid of the dinosaur, or is it better to just attack the villain directly?
Interesting. I like
Yeah.
that. What are the rules for those creatures that come up? Do they have to be killed as part of the, or destroyed or sent away or whatever they do, as part of the I win this round or this?
No,
Nice.
but basically, the decision on what to do with those creatures depends on how much they're hurting you. Because some things you're like, we have to get rid of this thing.
Right. It is killing us.
This dinosaur is laying damage on us, like
Right.
every turn. Yeah, when they have monsters that come out, they just get put to the side.
Gotcha.
Same way the villain minions and things come out. So in this case, it is Albright Institute data theft, and it says each time a player plays a card, they discard one card. To be clear, that sucks.
That sounds like that sucks.
Yeah. Now this one has a limitation, and it's at the start of the environment turn. Destroy this card. So this is going to come into play, and then you're going to do the effect. But when it comes around to the next environment turn, this is destroyed.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. So you don't have to carry it around with you until you're, yeah.
Not this particular one, but others do stick around.
Oh, okay. So could you get a card that would infect you for the duration of the game, or
Possibly, like they all have end conditions that tell you.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, some of them just last a turn, or even, instantly.
Now, are they negative and positive, or are they?
They are primarily negative, but there are
Right.
some positive ones.
Okay.
It's like Freedom City. There's like a ghost cab, and sometimes the ghost cab shows up and helps you.
Nice.
Yeah. So basically, like that's the anatomy of a turn. The villain goes, the heroes go in clockwise fashion, then the environment goes, and then that's a turn. And then you go back to the villain.
So what I'm thinking about the anatomy of a turn, but the game sort of runs itself. There's not like a GM or it's like somebody is doling out the cards. Everyone's just doing their turn, and the deck is already created to support that automated kind of process. That's great.
And I mean, basically, like the cards tell you what to do.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
there's no decisions to be made with the villains. On their turn, you just flip up the next card.
Okay, well, so how long does the game last?
It depends on how many players there are and how familiar they are with the rules.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You're looking at probably between 45 minutes and up to an hour and a half, depending.
Okay, so not terribly long.
No, not terribly long.
Yeah. And maybe if you get better at it, you want to run a couple of them, or something. Yeah, that's great.
Well, it's funny because there is a digital version of this. Or I'm sorry, there will be a digital version of this.
Yeah.
But there has been a digital version of Sentinels of the Multiverse. And that's actually where I learned to really love that game. Because I was playing it by myself on my iPad, I would run like 3-4 heroes myself. And then the problem that I had is that when I would play it in real life, I would just want to do everything. Just like, oh yes, you want to do this and that and this and that.
Right.
But you can't be a jerk. You got to let people make their own decisions.
You got to give them a chance to play.
Yeah. So right now, actually, there is a Kickstarter going for the digital version of Sentinels of Earth-Prime. Handelabra, the same company that does Sentinels of the Multiverse digital, they are now integrating our decks into that system. And if you have an existing collection of decks in the digital game already, you'll just add these to what you have. So once again, you can use Earth-Prime and multiverse characters and environments and villains together, which is cool. Okay. I want to say that they funded yesterday, but I haven't checked. They came by the booth and were like, "We're going to fund today," so hopefully they funded.
Yeah, we'll pull that up here in just a second. Make sure everyone has a link to that. Yeah, that's exciting. That's and the thing about this is people really love it.
Oh yeah,
they can see it from across the show floor. They're just like, "What is that? Does that work with?" Yeah. Awesome.
And if you are an existing Sentinels fan, we did this originally as a Kickstarter. And as a Kickstarter, it had stretch goals. And so some of the stuff that Greater Than Games would do as promotions, we made stretch goals. So in Multiverse, there's the idea of alternate characters. So they can represent either the hero at a different phase of their life, or sometimes like a legacy, where it's like, oh, this young person has taken over the legacy of this character, or like here's a version from the 1940s, or all sorts of stuff like that. So in Sentinels Multiverse, you don't get any alternate cards in the box, but in Earth-Prime, you do. There is one alternate for each character. Here, here's the male version of the Raven. This is the more modern Lady Liberty. Basically, this game uses the classic Freedom League that dates back to the early 2000s. And over time, the timeline of Mutants and Masterminds has basically advanced as actual time has. So these sorts of battles would actually be, 2004, 2005 sort of thing. But this Lady Liberty is the more current Lady Liberty, who is a Puerto Rican woman this time. Because remember, kids, Puerto Rico's part of America.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And we're talking Sentinels Digital from Handelabra, right?
I was talking about that.
Yeah. I'm just sharing that right now on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
And And so they are on Kickstarter now, 14 days to go, and they are at $477 over their $20,000 goal.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So looking good. Yeah. Congratulations to our friends there. And this is great. It's looking really good. Let me, I'm going to do a quick screen share.
Yeah, they've been just hammering on that, and they had the whole infrastructure, obviously, since they had, programmed everything for the Multiverse game. So it's just a matter of implementing our art and cards and some of the unique gameplay elements of our decks.
There we go. Here we are. Take a look. Yeah, they're funded. That's great.
Yay.
So good.
Congrats, Handelabra.
A really nice group of folks.
Yeah, totally.
Really, really great. Yeah.
I should also mention that we have 4 expansion decks for the game.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So there are 2 additional heroes. There is Eldritch, who's like a master mage sort of character. And then there's Lantern Jack, who is an American Revolutionary War era ghost. Um, and he's been haunting an area of Freedom City called Lantern Hill for hundreds of years. He uses the powers of his lantern to frighten and defeat foes, which is good
Okay,
fun.
so when you say the powers of his lantern, it's
Yeah.
not just the power to light things up. It's
Correct.
Okay.
It's got different. So there's different cards that are different special effects from the
Cool,
lantern.
cool.
Yeah. So there's a 5th villain who is Malador the Mystic. He is an ancient, lich, basically. And I mentioned earlier that we made the villain cards oversized. Traditionally, in a villain booster like this, there'd be 2 just regular sized cards as part of it that represented the villain. But these cards are so much nicer that what we did was where'd it go? We made an oversized card for Malador the Mystic and just put it in the core box.
Nice.
So when you pick him up, you've got the oversized card for him already.
I like that. Now the oversized card is like almost like a character sheet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be good.
But if you're a multiverse player and you just buy this and you don't have this box, there are the 2 smaller cards.
Nice.
So you can still play him without that.
That's great.
Yeah. And then finally, we have a 5th environment, which is called Subterra. So there's like serpent people and all kinds of crazy underground stuff going on.
So was Subterra designed? Was it taken from the Mutants and Masterminds canon, or
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, all these characters and locations come from the Earth-Prime setting.
Gotcha. Nothing new so much as an introduction to a new way to play with them.
Yeah, that's right.
Beautiful.
Yeah. When we first started being some masterminds, Freedom City was the big setting for the game.
Right.
And so for a while, we were doing source books and things, and we would refer to the larger world and out into space as the Freedom Verse. But eventually we decided we really ought to give it a name. And so
right.
That's where we went with Earth-Prime, and that's how we
ran
things now.
Yeah, so folks will also note we talk about a lot of this in articles and things that we posted to our Mutants Masterminds Patreon.
Yes.
We've talked about, sort of the omniversal variants and all that kind of good stuff. And so you can check out some of that stuff by heading over to patreon.com/mutantsand masterminds and see some of the deeper cuts as it relates to kind of alternative, really anything. It's kind of there's a robust library. Expansions planned?
We're talking about it.
Yeah. You can imagine the minute this came out, people were like, "And now, expansions?"
I know.
Yeah, it cracked me up.
It was it took some doing to get this done because first of all, there's over 300 cards, and so we have to get a lot of art done, and then the production was interrupted by the international shipping crisis that was a result of COVID. So.
And then everything else, right?
Everything else.
Yeah.
So, I've never had world events impact Green Ronin as much as they have the past couple of years.
Yeah, they've been pretty monumental.
Yeah.
But hey, look, it's out. People love it. They're playing it. They're having a really good time with it. Yeah. And so we're at the booth 101.
That's right.
And now, Chris, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we've got some bundles and things going on for Mutants and Masterminds. Yes. We've got what else do we've got bundles for?
We've got a bundle that's got our Freeport, the City of Adventure, big giant setting book for Pathfinder First Edition. And that used to cost $75, but here at the show, we're selling it for $25. And there's also a full adventure path called Return to Freeport that Owen Stevens developed and you can get both of them together for a bargain price. Um, Mutants and Masterminds. We've got the, let's see, Heroic Bundle with the Basic Heroes Handbook and Deluxe Game Master's Guide for $60 total. There's the Bowman's Bundle, which is Freedom City, and Threat Report, which is a book of villains. That's 50. And then we have Crystals Cartography Conspiracy.
Okay, what's that about?
So that is our new book, Danger Zones. And what Danger Zones is a collection of mapped locations where you can set encounters in your Mutants and Masterminds game. Honestly, you could also use it for Modern Age if you wanted to.
Okay.
But the stat support is for Mutants and Masterminds. So it'll have a map of every location, a description of it, and then adventure hooks and then NPCs that you might encounter at that location.
Great resource. There's a
Oh,
ton of maps. There's a
Yeah, a
ton
ton of
yeah,
maps.
yeah. It's really awesome. And Crystal's just an incredible talent.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely want to check this out. So we have a question from the chat.
Yeah.
What's Chris Pramas' favorite game? Like whether it's Mutants and Masterminds or Blue Rose or.
Huh. Well,
Which child do you love more?
oh, of ours or in general?
I guess that's a good. I think that they're given that they've offered two Green Ronin examples.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let's do that, and then if they change their mind, we'll have you answer that too.
Well, I have to say Fantasy Age because of the adventure game engine games. That's the one that's like the most mine.
I gotcha.
Because I designed the rules for our Dragon Age role-playing game.
Yeah.
And that was really the birth of the adventure game engine. And people really liked those rules, and they, were asking if we were going to do something that wasn't tied to the Dragon Age setting. And so that's where Fantasy Age came from. And then since then, we've done Blue Rose, we've done Modern Age, and The Expanse. Those all use the adventure game engine. And our upcoming Cthulhu Awakens game and fifth season game based on N.K. Jemison's novels. Those also use the age system. So each one has like bespoke rules to better represent its particular genre.
Yeah.
But the core of the systems are the same. So if you learn Fantasy Age, when you get Modern Age, it'll be very easy for you to.
Right. Temp says Greg Stafford had Pendragon and Monty Cook had Invisible Sun. Yeah.
Well, so in fact, if it was going to be from other companies,
sure,
I would probably pick Pendragon.
Oh yeah.
It was. I've been got it when it first came out back in the '80s, and I just really liked what it did. And at the time, I was particularly into the Arthurian mythos, and I thought the stuff Greg did with that game was incredible. Unfortunately, because it is like Arthurian lore, it is you need to have a group that's like into it. If you have people who just want to joke around or be slutty bards or whatever, that's not the game. That's not the game.
All right, I guess no playing for me.
Oh.
I do love to be a slutty bard.
I'm the sluttiest bard in King Arthur's court.
Right, I want a T-shirt that says the sluttiest bard. Oh, that's so funny. But we like to have fun.
Yeah.
All right, well that's great. Folks, if you have any other questions, Chris is going to sit here and stare into the camera and tell you. And no, I'm kidding. It was a really good show. I mean, I'm looking at people were so excited, and one of the things that I forgot. It's been so long since I had gone to a show that I forgot I was an extrovert.
Oh yeah.
I had to kind of relearn.
I didn't forget.
Right. It just really was. It was refreshing and it was nice. Now, if I had to do some back-to-back shows, I might have a very different opinion on that.
Yeah.
But definitely and I feel like everything kind of hit its stride. Just you depend on so many people to do things, deliver things on time. Get things to the printer, all that jazz, and it just felt like it all really came together, which is nice.
Well, we were able to do some stuff here that we hadn't done before. Where over quarantine and stuff, we had some smaller books that we had done as PDF only.
That's right.
But for this show, we did some short print runs of things like the Trojan War book for Fantasy Age.
That's right. Yeah. And they turned out the POD stuff, or I mean, it is just
Yeah.
improved exponentially.
Oh yeah, in
Yeah.
the '90s, POD was like visible from space. You're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's POD.
More like POs, like, yeah, just a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that, and then speaking of the Mutants Masterminds Patreon, we had a whole setting book that was developed on there with the patrons' input called Starhaven. And so Starhaven is a city on one of the moons of Europa that was settled by alien refugees.
Right. In the midst kind of the crisis of
Yeah.
settlement. But what's fun about this too is that our Patreon voted for who would be running it, and then created sort of lifelong enemies and conflicts as a result. And there's stuff going on underwater. There's stuff going on in the outer kind of ring. There's all kinds of amazing stuff,
Yeah.
and a lot of that was help. We were sort of prompted and collaborating with our Patreon folks.
Yeah. Didn't they choose the form of the government too?
They did, yeah. They voted for the yeah. It was great because each one had very different, very different, approaches to government. But yeah, in that one, I think it was Alex Thomas that kind of won out. It was either Alex or I think it was Alex. Hey, Alex, you're the one that got your politician elected, right?
Starhaven.
I was a politician. And
Yes.
I got beaten by one vote.
Oh, and it did end up being Crystal.
Oh, at Starhaven, yes.
Yeah.
I was the one who got it.
You're talking about the other time when you were
I was
really.
talking about political science camp. No, Starhaven, yes.
Yeah, no worries. And the Guide to Starhaven was kind of put together and shepherded through by Alex. I mean,
basically our M&M team of Alex Thomas, Crystal Frazier, and Steve Kenson, they put it all together, and patrons got PDFs of that, and we had time enough to do a short print run of that to have here at Gen Con. So
yeah, and people love it. Yeah, it's great. So Tim says, I mean, like a game that's most yours, like you speak to you. So it sounds like Pendragon is your answer.
Well, the most my game is fantasy.
Well, what I mean to say is in the context of, not your own game.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Yeah.
In that, yes.
Kind of the game dev's game,
yes,
if you will.
It's probably my favorite game that I get to play the least.
Right, okay. Why is it like that? I definitely know that. I mean, mine is Monopoly.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding. I hate that game.
It's because you need the right group. And like my regular game groups over the years, like there hasn't been a majority of the people who are like, Arthurian mythos, hell yeah,
right,
right. And you need a certain level of buy-in.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I tried to run a Pendragon adventure for some of my gaming buddies, and there's a part where you pick a coat of arms because you all play knights.
Right.
And so he drew the Green Bay Packers G onto his shield, and then he's like, my character is Sir Guy of Green Bay. And I'm like, you're not hitting the tone.
That's right. Take it back to the drawing board. Yeah, that is funny. Okay, well, so we've got some other things cooking today. We've got we're going to talk with John from Abraxas Precipice. We're going to do some other demos and things. We could probably wrap on this for now, unless you've got some other things you want to cover or talk about.
Let's see. I will note that the latest expanse thing we had here is Beyond the Ring, and that's the first book that kind of advances the timeline of the novels. So the core game takes place during the first and second novels, and now we're up to like 3, 4. Where the ring gates open, and all of a sudden humanity can send ships through to all these extremely different star systems where they may find all sorts of terribly dangerous stuff and ancient ruins and all kinds of stuff. So it basically opens up a new style of adventure for the game. Where there's a whole mini system for how to found and run like a colony or a science station.
Right, even from the like building your system, right? Like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so that's cool. We sold out of that here, but it's in print in a larger sense. So,
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, people really do love that. And then, yeah. So we didn't do a print run of the uh, shoot. It's the prequel to Beyond the Ring, and it's the
the Expanse,
yeah. It's the I'll remember, but it's the
Abzu's Bounty.
no, it's not Abdul's right. Um, we'll find out here
Okay.
because yeah, it exists. I promise.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's the shoot. I was looking for Ian,
Oh,
but
is this some of those short adventures like
that's right.
Salvage Op and things like
Well,
that?
no, it's yeah, it's like that.
Like-
Yeah, but it's not that.
Yeah. Well, no, we didn't print those.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
Like one of the things we're doing with M&M next is, I'm sure the longtime fans know, we've been releasing these short PDFs called Astonishing Adventures, and we're going to start collecting those into print books. And so the first one is going to have, I want to say, six Astonishing Adventures in it, plus extra material. And so that will just make more adventures more available to people. You can just buy one book and there they are.
Love it. And what are we calling that?
It's called Astonishing Adventures.
We also have the extravaganza.
Oh yeah, I gotta talk about that. Okay, so we have a crowdfunder coming up. It'll be Mutants and Masterminds reprint extravaganza. And again, as long-term fans have probably noticed, a bunch of our source books have fallen out of print over the past few years. And because of the world being on fire and cash flow being challenging, we just haven't been able to reprint them. So this campaign is basically to try to fund as many of the reprints as we can in one go. So we also just sold out of the 5th printing of the Deluxe Heroes Handbook. So we need to reprint the core book as well. So the way it's structured, the first books you can back are Deluxe Heroes Handbook, of course, and then also Power Profiles, Long in Demand, and Gadget Guides.
Gadget guys as well. People long in demand. Yeah.
Yeah, Power Profiles, it uses the power effects system from the core book. It just builds out a bunch of powers by theme. So it's like, oh, do you want to have a person with lightning powers? Go to the lightning chapter, storms, or what have you. So that's where we're starting. And then as stretch goals, we will unlock further books. And so if the Kickstarter does well enough, then we'll add other stuff like the Cosmic Handbook, Supernatural Handbook, Hero High, and in grand total, we, depending on how much money we make, may print 9 books.
That's right. Yeah. So I think we're looking at Rogues Gallery, the GM kits, the GM screen.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and then Earth-Prime. Did we already talk about that?
Yeah, Atlas of Earth-Prime.
Yes, yeah, Atlas of Earth-Prime. That's great. And I'm also showing the screen, the actual page, so people can kind of read along. And you know what's great is that Chris did that by memory as I rolled through, and so it was spot on. So there you go. You passed the
I
test.
was cheating a little bit.
You're not supposed to admit that live on stream. You're supposed to say thank you.
I try to be honest with our fans.
I don't. I try to lie. Everybody knows it. No, I'm kidding. You know, I don't lie. I love.
Yeah.
I just love too hard. No. Okay. So that's a lot. Have we missed anything? I mean, this is all about there being a ton of stuff for people to sink their teeth into.
Yeah.
Stuff in the future that they can kind of get behind and get engaged with. I'm trying to think of what else we've got cooking. It just seems like a lot. There's even more.
Well, so the most recent Modern Age book that we had here was the Mastery Guide. And you might hear that title and think, oh, it's for Game Masters. But it's not only for Game Masters. It tries to give just advice on how to play Modern Age better for both players and Game Masters.
Yeah. It's such a labor of love as well. It's so well written, and everybody that contributed, all of the other authors, are just absolutely smitten with it. Like they just love it, and it's really a great read. Good stuff. Okay, here's a question from Temp. Asks, is there a chance to adapt Invincible or The Boys to Mutants and Masterminds?
I mean, with licenses, there's always a chance.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of The Boys as a Wow, like it's just like
Yeah.
just a lot of the viscera.
So I mean, there's some fundamental differences between the comic and the show. Um,
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so one of the weird things about the comic was, the boys are people who keep the soups in line, but they themselves are given these shots that make them super strong and stuff. So it's like, aren't you kind of a super, but you hate supers?
Right.
But in the show, they don't have that.
That is a very different thing. I mean, yeah, yeah. It makes it's a different setting.
I
Yeah.
mean, there is a drug, but it's like it's not that the boys are shooting it up and getting buff.
Right, right. Yeah. That is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely changes the dynamic for sure. I didn't realize it was a set of books. I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah,
get into
yeah.
it.
It was Garth Ennis comic book.
Nice, nice. Oh, okay, great. Like a graphic novel kind of setup. Oh, I love that. Yeah, yeah.
And I don't remember how many issues, 30.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it looked like
Yeah, so thank you, Tem, for your questions. I want to thank everybody who's been, dropping in and saying hello. Don't forget that if you're here at the show, like come by. We're, looking at a couple more hours. How long are we? We're here till 4.
4 o'clock.
Yeah, so it's 2 now. Yeah,
101.
that's right. And the deals that are happening, the bundles that are here around the table, are only happening at Gen Con. So yeah, sorry, friends.
Yeah.
But we take care of folks when they're not. All right. Anything else you want to share or say? Any final questions from the stream? Drop them in now because we're going to be closing out the stream and then we'll come back again with some other stuff. Nope. You good?
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like you're good too. Hey, Chris, thanks so much for weathering. We got here. We finally made it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to everybody soon. Take care. Thank you.
Everyone.